Good morning. My name's Ray. I'm with Team S.T.E.A.M. and today I'm here at Flash Industrial Painting while we're getting ready to undertake the task of turning this black 1995 Peterbilt 379 into a black Peterbilt 379. Now, at a glance, it might seem like this truck probably doesn't necessarily need paint. It's all black from front to back, looks decent, nothing's fallen off of it, nothing seems to be too problematic, but the owner of this truck wants this truck to be shiny, black, and completely renewed. And that's going to take a little bit of work. First of all, there's these air cleaners, which if you look at them, they look like they were painted with a roller and then a brush and then another roller. But the owner's going to replace them. He's putting stainless ones on here, so we don't have to worry about that. The sides of the truck are pretty average. You can tell where somebody's been in there before. You can see where somebody has worked on it before. And of course did not that great of a job. For instance, here's the passenger door. And if you look, 3/4 inch run from the rivet, an inch run from the rivet, 3/4 inch run from the rivet, 3/4 inch run. I mean, all the way down there. I can see where the side of this sleeper, again, passenger side, has been hailed out and poorly repaired. I don't know if you'll be able to see that in the video or not. Those aren't just hail dents. Those are hail dents that didn't get all the way repaired. And you can see them especially in black. Now back here, on the back of the sleeper, we've got all kinds of troubles. This whole section right here, as you can see by this deficit, this whole section right here has been bashed in. And it doesn't look that bad from this side, but if you get it outside and look at it, this is a big dent, and there's one on the other side in the same spot. See that dent? I don't know how well it's going to show up, but it's just beneath this rivet line right here on that side. I mean, it's casting a shadow. It's so deep, it's actually casting a shadow in itself. Right there. You can see, maybe you can see it, a big dent right there. And the whole bashed in section is right there. I'm not sure how well this translates on video, but that's in a good inch. All of that. And then beneath it is just a big old gnarly dent too. This is the bashed in side we were looking at from the other side. It's right here. And again, very, very beat up. Of course, this is a 1995. You can expect that. But I look up on the back of it, and I see all sorts of spots where you can see bad bodywork. You can see somebody fixed it at one point in time, but didn't fix it right. I can see their giant sand scratches. Look at those sand scratches. They go this way. And then over here, you can see this was a repaired dent that was never repaired correctly. It's way off. Somebody at some point in time took the wings off of this. You can see the result of that. And those are hard to get out. I would cut a guy some slack on that. Those are hard to get out because they're so close to the rivets. But they put in the wimpiest little rivets in the world, which means that at one point in time there was no rivets in here and they had a chance to fix it right. Now back here, again, good sized dent right here. Big dent right here. I mean, it's even got the roof cap swayed in. It's probably not showing up on film, but there's a big dent right here. Good sized dent right here. This back of this is just covered in dents, like you'd expect. It's a 1995. There's a big Audi right here. This is all sticking out. And of course, runs from rivets. About every third or fourth rivet has a run from it. So those are the kind of things we see all the time around here. This is the driver's side, and I'll try and get the reflection to come across there. This is just a mess. And this down here is just a mess. Got to run from the rivet there, but it's probably not going to show up very well on film. But all in all, this down here is a mess. You can see somebody's just gouged it up with a grinder and then just painted right over it all the way. See those? Just gouged it up with a grinder and then just painted it. And the owner put a new hood on this truck, but I see evidence that it's not brand new. And he, at this time, didn't know about me. And so he took the brand new hood to a place in a neighboring town and had it painted. And of course, they did a subpar job. And when I asked him who did the painting, he gave me the guy's name. And at one point in time, 26 years ago, I actually worked for this clown. And I know how terrible his standards and his work are. I used to make fun of him in his own shop when I was working for him. And anyway, he had him paint it, and sure enough, I see deficiencies everywhere on this hood. And he asked when he first showed up, he said, so can we just leave the hood black? I just got it painted and just paint the rest of the truck. And I said, no, I'm not gonna have my work next to the work of this particular clown. Well, the boys are gonna be here in a few minutes. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna wipe this thing down with thinner, just in case somebody's ever buffed on it. And then we're gonna go ahead and start taking it apart and getting it masked up. Here we're getting some of this masking done. We got everything taken off that we're gonna take off. We're starting to get some of this masking banged out. And while the boys are working on that, I'll be taking a rather powerful little tool called a Porta Power inside the sleeper. All right, so here I am in this sleeper now. And what I've done is I've taken some measurements from the outside of the truck using a few different reference points and come up with some rough yet somewhat accurate measurements on the inside of the truck, which is where these pieces of tape are, as to where I need to push. It's pushed way in right here, and the whole entire brace is pushed in right here. This one I might not have as much luck with. I'm just gonna shove on a little bit and see what happens. You gotta take it real easy. You have to be very careful when you're doing stuff like this. If you go too far and you break a brace or you spring something, and all of a sudden you've got to replace the sleeper somehow on a 1995 truck that's got a unique sleeper. This used to belong to an outfit that would custom order their trucks without the passenger side lower compartment door. So that's gonna be very, very hard to find, almost impossible to replace. So I have to be very careful. This one I'm gonna shove on lightly. This one here I know is above the brace, and I can afford to shove on it a bit more, but all I'm gonna do is do a little bit of pushing, go outside, and see what it's doing. Then come in and do a little bit of pushing, go outside and see what it's doing. Because you can't just push it to where now the back of the sleeper is flat instead of dished in. That won't do you any good. It'll never do you any good. You need to actually over push it to bend those metal braces outward enough that when you let it off, it comes back to flat. If you push it out to where it's just flat and then leave it, 100 out of 100 times, as soon as you let the pressure off of the Porta Power, it'll sink right back in. You actually have to over push it and get it to bulge out by a certain amount just so it'll spring back to flat. That's where all this risk comes in. All right, now at this point, I've got my Porta Power all set up in here. This is the sleeper door. There's the top of the brace of the sleeper door, and that's the side of the brace of the sleeper door. And I've got this 4x4 block across there so I can get my pressure point out here far enough, the point that I wish to push from, far enough out here that I can actually push fairly straight across the sleeper. I don't want to be pushing at a big angle and ripping parts of the interior of the sleeper or causing any unnecessary damage. And since the point I need to push on is right back here, and it's out far enough into the sleeper that there's nothing to press against. I don't want to press against this and collapse his closet and break stuff. So instead I put this 4x4 block across here, and now I've got the other end of it against this piece of wood. And this tape just marks where my other tape is, because as soon as I cover it up with the board, I no longer know exactly where I want to push to. So I put this tape just on the outside of it so I know exactly where I want to push to. Now I'm going to shove on it a little bit using this pump right here. And once I get it pushed out about an inch, I'll go out and I'll have a look. And then I'll come back in and I'll do it again and I'll go out and have a look. And then I will, once I reach a point that I think that I might have it bent, I'll go ahead and release it and see what we've got. And then if I haven't pushed it out enough, then I'll start over and I'll keep going until I do push it out enough. All right, now I did some shoving on that spot like I wanted to. I ended up shoving on it twice. I pushed it out quite a bit, let it off, and it wasn't quite enough, so I pushed out even further. Like I said, that's pretty risky. And then let it off, and now it's right where I wanted it to be. It's straight like it was when it was stock. So I'm real happy with that. Now I'm moving on to the next one. And so what I'm doing next is, I've got this custom cut 4x4 block. I cut it to this exact length so it wouldn't get up here into this slide and collapse this slide or cause any damage. It's just beneath it, and then it goes all the way down to the floor as well. Again, spanning this distance with something strong enough to be able to withstand the pushing. And I've got a number of 4x4s and other blocks of different sizes. This one was about a foot too long. I went ahead and cut it down. Now I've got what I need here, and I've got my Porta Power hooked up to it. And as you can see, this just marks where I want to be this way, because the center of this is also very bowed in on the back. It's very bowed in. And there's actually an X right here behind this that marks exactly where I wanted this board to be. And this is a 2x4. It's about a 5 foot long 2x4, or maybe a little longer, to be able to soak up a lot of the tension of this pushing and hopefully get the back to push out more evenly. But the whole back of the sleeper is bowed in on that joint. And so what I intend to do is go ahead and shove on it and do the same thing. Hopefully get that push back out to where it's reasonable. And I don't know how well it's going to show up on film, but I'll show you just how bowed out I have the back of this right now, because I have it under full pressure right now, and I'm going to let off and we'll see where we're at. But I bowed it out once and it wasn't quite enough. It didn't spring, it sprung back too far. It was still dished in. Right here on this seam, all the way across, you could see it's just dished in. And the whole thing is bowed in this way too. So the whole center got a load dropped on it. A load must have come off of a trailer. Something happened to shove the whole center of this in. And right now I've got it bowed out, and I'll show you. It probably is not going to show up on film, but right now this whole thing is out a couple inches at least. I mean, if you look straight down this edge, look where the center is right here. I mean, it's bowed clear out. And the center of it isn't dished in anymore, it's just straight. Just straight, well, maybe bowed a little bit this way. I need it bowed more this way. Believe it or not, it needs to be bowed more. So when I let off, it all shrinks back to straight. But for right now, this is just an example of just how far out. I mean, it's pushed out a couple inches in the center at least, if you compare it to the edge of this corner. All right, now I've done some shoving on it, a couple different sessions, and I've let all the pressure off. And now that I look at this row of rivets right here, all the way across, it is perfectly straight. This row of rivets along this brace right here is also perfectly straight. Same with the one on the other side. So now that the dimensions of this sleeper are returned to where they were when they were stock, I can start dealing with some of the body work, of which there is a bunch. And now I can start looking at some of this body work, and like right here where this brace was, you can see they put these 6 wimpy rivets in right here. And there's a big dent right in between these 4 rivets, right in the center of them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill out all 6 of these little sissy rivets they put in, and I'm also gonna take these rivets out. Then I'm gonna mark exactly where these holes were in a template on a piece of paper. I'm gonna put a piece of paper over it and poke a pin through it right where all those holes were. And I'm going to use that piece of paper when I put this truck back together to re-drill those holes and replace those rivets. But by taking them out, I can go ahead and get my bodywork good and flat all through here. All right, so at this point, we've got the truck all taken apart. The boys got the truck all masked up. I went ahead and had them throw tarps over this cow catcher here, because this one's gonna be a little more to take off than we were interested in. It's got bolts that you can tell are going to either gall the threads or break off if we go to try and take it off. So we're just gonna leave it on there. Got it masked up. We got a board thrown in the center so I can get up there and walk if I need to. We've got a jack stand underneath it to support it, and everything else. Plus, I don't have a whole lot of work to do to this hood compared to a lot of hoods. I don't have a whole lot of dents to fix. There is some stuff to do. And when we open the hood, I find something interesting. And I mentioned before how I happen to know the individual that painted this hood last, and he's a clown. And I keep seeing things like big dirt chunks. I mean, dirt chunks half the size of a marble. And here's something else interesting that I saw. I don't know if you can see it very well in the reflection, but it looks like somebody set down a can or a giant cup or a bowl or something on there. See that? It's about 4 inches around. whatever it was that got set on this hood repelled the new paint. And so in his infinite wisdom, he just decided to try and drown it in paint to try and level it out, but it didn't work. If you look really closely, you can just see solvent pop everywhere. It almost looks like dirt. There's just solvent pop everywhere in this. And then look at that. And then look at these rashes of dirt. Big fish eyes. And this was supposedly a new hood. And I mean, I even will get a little dirt in my paint from time to time. It does happen. But it's a matter of how you turn it back to the customer. If it's a hood, if it's a chassis and I get a little bit of dirt in it, I don't sweat that too much. But if it's a hood or something like that, the doors, something that you can just walk right up and see, you got to color sand that out and buff it out. You want it to look good when the customer comes to get it. You don't leave a giant 1/8-inch deep circle just in the paint surrounded by solvent pop and next to boulders sitting everywhere that have been painted over. I mean, I knew what to expect when the guy told me the guy's name that painted it though. I told him, oh, I know this is going to be fun when I open the hood. And sure enough, there's just garbage everywhere. And I removed literally 50 rivets. This whole row right here where there was a brace right here. Somebody stuck in just really, really wimpy little 3/16 rivets. Somebody stuck in really wimpy 3/16 rivets here. I removed these 4 because of this big dent between them. That just make it easier to go ahead and settle it all out. And I put 1 rivet back in it because there's a plate in between this layer and the brace that I didn't want to slip down in there. So I put this 1 rivet in there. And then down here, I left these 4 factory rivets alone because they're not in too bad a spot. And then took out these 6, took out these 7 right here because there was something bolted back here at some point. And underneath their previous bodywork, it got so corroded. I didn't want to try and deal with that around rivets. So I just drilled out all their rivets and I'll replace them all when the time comes. But that won't be until after this is primed, sanded, and getting ready to be reprimed for the primer that I shoot just before I shoot paint. That's when I'll do it. And the way that I know I can mark out all these holes and have the locations remain true is I got a piece of masking paper for both sides, fitted up in this corner perfectly, held it in place, and then poked a hole in it in all of these locations. Then I did a similar thing down here with a different piece of masking paper. So when the time comes, I can just hold that same piece up here, take a pin, and put it right through each of those little holes and make a little tiny circle and then come through and drill them and they'll be right where they need to be. But the very next thing I'm going to do before I even begin body work is I'm going to crawl up here and I'm going to get these off. They held on to some sort of wing or something that was on the top of this truck, and the owner said that he would like them removed before we go ahead and paint it. So I'm going to go ahead and get these 2 guys removed, and then I'm going to go ahead and start prepping body work. And while I'm busy cutting on this truck, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pieces of metal trim that run along the bottom of the sleeper on both sides. And as you can see, when they wrap around the back here, they were gonna come in contact with these tanks at some point. The tanks may not be original, or maybe the air suspension's been changed out. Something happened during the life of this truck where these were going to come down and hit these tanks at some point. So somebody just folded them up under. And they're not connected back here. And they're folded under, which is kind of tacky looking. So while we got the truck under the knife, as you can see, I've got a mark right here that I made in tape. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off with a Sawzall. I took measurements off of this one and duplicated those measurements on the other side. I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the other side too. Just like that. Now this kind of ugly folded up piece can go in the trash. This is out of the way of the fuel tank. No matter how low this sleeper ever gets, it'll never get into it. And the look isn't too dissimilar from this or this. Like that. Now I need to concentrate on getting these cut off. There's one on either side. These got to come off as well. Like that. Now I'll go ahead and clean all this mess up, get that ground down, and then do a fiberglass patch over the top of it and do body work over the top of that. All right, now at this point I've got the boys busy pre-scratching rivets, as you can see. All up in here, scratching the details like the exhaust mounts, around the exhaust mount, They're nowhere near done. That's why some of this isn't done yet, but this is just part of the way through. This is part of the process that we do. Like even above these rivets isn't done yet, but this is just part of the process, getting all the rivets completely scratched before we ever even sand. And now I'm going to begin, you see that dent right there? Now I'm going to begin finding all those little spots like that, all the little dents and dings, and sanding just those spots. If I sand the entire truck at once, well, you're never going to see those. Those will be dull and you'll never see them. The reason that these are dull beneath these rivets is because I came through with a sanding block and I went ahead and sanded out all of those runs before we ever even really got going here. Because if the boys come through and they scratch all these rivets and make all this dull, it's gonna be very hard for me to see where the runs are beneath the rivets. So I came through with a sanding block, just a little 1000 grit sanding block, like these. This one happens to be a 1500 grit. This one is 1000 grit. This is the kind that I use. This is the brand that I use. It's not an endorsement. This is just, I don't even know if anybody else even makes them like this. And I've used these for my entire 25-year career. And I keep spares around. But a block just like this one is what I use to sand those rivets down. Okay, now here's the passenger side. As you can see, none of that's been sanded because, as I mentioned, I'm going to do them one section at a time so I can kind of remind myself of just how big and deep some of these dents are so I can more accurately apply the body filler as I go. But here's this side all done. And here's the driver's side all done. Now the next thing I'm going to tackle is the center portions here. And then I'm going to do the sides of the truck as well, which they don't have too many dents, but what they do have are fairly substantial. All right, well, at this point, I've got all the initial body work finished up. Now, when you look at stuff like this, this is the body work that's going to be left. This is all going to be eliminated. That doesn't need to be there and won't be there. When I go to wet sand prime, that's all going to be gone. So when I say it's initially done, that's what I mean. It's initially done. It's not fully prepped for wet sanding primer yet, and a lot of it's not even glazed yet. But as you can see, got the driver's side done here. There was a good sized dent right there, and a ton of body work went into the back here. As you can see, there was hardly any spot where there wasn't a dent. And as I mentioned, I still have to glaze this body work, and here's all these little dings on the passenger side are all been taken care of, and these were done in glazing. And I still have to glaze the 10 trillion cracks all over the roof, but the initial body work is all done and I'm ready to move on to that phase. And so at this point, the body work and all the surrounding areas have been sanded and scratched and wet sand primed. The entire roof, both roofs, and the sides, the doors, the back, the other side, everything back here, basically from the hood back, has been sanded, scratched, and wet sand primed. Now, the goal for today is to go ahead and get everything sanded down, finish sanding the hood, finish scratching everything, get this truck 100% ready to go. All right, well, that took all day long, well into the evening. And now here it is the next morning, and everything is sanded, everything is scratched, it's all blown off, it's 100% ready to go, except for just one more thing. I need to get my templates out that I made earlier in the project, which define exactly where all of these holes, because I got rid of, at first it was only 50 rivets, but by the time I was done messing around, it was 60. 60 rivets I ended up removing from the back of this sleeper so I could more accurately do my work. And now I'm gonna retrieve that template, mark out where all those rivet holes are, drill them, and re-rivet them before I prime. All right, all the rivets are installed. There was just under 60 of them that I needed to put in. Now I'm gonna go ahead, blow this off just one more time, make darn sure, wipe it down, get it primed. Well, it's all primed up. Primer's had plenty of time to go ahead and cure out. Let's go ahead and get some paint on this guy. Well, all right. Here it is first thing the next morning. I've already looked everything over. Looks like it turned out pretty good. The boys are going to be here any minute. We're going to go ahead and get this guy unmasked and put back together. Well, that about does it for this guy. Let's go ahead and walk around it and have a look. All right, here we've got a 1995 Peterbilt 379. Couple million miles on it. Been a work truck the majority of its life, although it started out life as a Werner truck. When it showed up, it had a subpar paint job on the hood done by somebody who I used to work for years ago. Had a few dings in the door. Had a bunch of dings in the side of the sleeper here, and somebody had poorly fixed them. Cracks in the sleeper cap, millions and millions of cracks in the sleeper cap. The back of the sleeper here was bashed in. And as you can see, there's no trace that it was ever bashed in, and it was absolutely had from top to bottom. This thing required so much attention and body work. And now it looks like it's been well taken care of its entire life. Had a big dent right here, that's gone. A couple dents out in here, no trace of them. A couple good sized dents in the driver's side door. One right up there and one down there. Those are what I call the Peterbilt dents, because at some point the door gets opened into the air cleaner and that's what causes them. Brand new air cleaners. This particular owner provided brand new air cleaners for this truck. The other ones had it. And as you can see my reflection all the way down. It turned out nice. Now it's ready to pack on a couple million more miles. Well, all right, that about does it for this guy. Up next, I've got both an '05 Kenworth sitting here in the yards already and another 90s model 379 sitting here in the yards already. Both waiting for us to give them some attention. Hey, if you like this video, take the time to hit the like button. That's gonna help me grow this channel. And if you wanna see more of what goes on around here, come check me out at Facebook at Flash Industrial Painting. And if you wanna see more videos like this, or domestic auto body, or gardening, or art, or any of the many things we do around here, you might as well just take the time to hit the subscribe button while you're at it, because you know, we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.